Hey folks, Kilt-Man here, Kilt-Man at your services. How are you all? I hope you're all doing very, very well. Now, I present to you a review in mullet-style. Yes, mullet-style. That's not what this is. This is not a mullet, folks. It goes over my ears. It's not a mullet. But the review is, in other words, non-spoilery right at the front end of this review. And I'll give you ample warning, we're going to go into big spoiler territory. So if you haven't seen one of the two big Spider movies from 2024, Sting, just stick around for the first part and then return after you've watched it. Now, I was lucky enough to see a special preview of this just a scant few hours ago. Yeah, I still get, once in a blue moon, get invited to these things, and it's great. In fact, normally when I get invited, it's to films I don't want to see, so I just don't bother. That's probably why I don't make the list so often. But this, I thought, yes, of course I want to see this. I did a video on this and the other big arachnid movie that's coming out this year, or rather has come out this year, but none of us have seen it yet. The French movie Infested, which by all accounts is the real deal. As we'll find out with this review, I love the film Sting. I think it's great. But the real scary one is Infested, the French one. Again, like this movie, set in a besieged tenement block apartments, which will become infested, overrun with many spiders. In this movie, we just have the one spider. But what a spider she is. Anyway, so right. Mullet-style, no spoilers in the first part of this, then I'll tip you off and I'll shake a little spider's leg at you. And we'll go into the really, the meat and bones of it all. Right, directed by Kia Roach Turner and filmed in Australia, yet set in a snowbound, blizzard-ridden New York City. An eccentric, filled, dilapidated, maintenance-heavy apartment complex. And we have Charlotte. Yes, Charlotte. 12-year-old Charlotte. Charlotte Webb, anybody? She's alienated from a dysfunctional nuclear family. She's there with her mother, that's great. But her dad, her biological dad, ain't there anymore. We've got a stepfather, and he's great. But they've got a little baby boy, so her baby brother. So Ethan, is it Ethan? It is Ethan, who's the stepdad, is the maintenance man in that building. But he divides his time. He's working, all the hours God sends, fixing things around the place and making a hash of it usually, because the place is a nightmare. And trying to make ends meet. And he's a comic book artist as well, which is handy, because that's a bonding thing between him and Charlotte. Because Charlotte, 12-year-old Charlotte, has her own comic book, which is beginning to find a bit of a fan base, and it's called Fang Girl. Fang as in fangs, and which is a bit of foreshadowing again. So these two, the bonding is there, but there's friction there as well because it's not her real dad, and a lot of time is taken up with this bloody kid brother. So she finds solace and sanctuary by escaping into the ductwork, ventilation shafts of the apartment complex, and scuttles around these, and she can break in through the grills into other people's apartments. And she's not nefarious, she's just seeking escape and adventure. Now, you've heard of a boy and his dog. Well, this is a girl and her spider, because what happens is we have a little spider, starts off little anyway, arrives, but it's how it arrives. It arrives in a little egg meteor. We see it coming to Earth, and you think, oh God, this is big, it's huge. And then in a series of great photography is great in this movie. I'll talk about that later. It comes through, lands above, flies above the rooftops of Manhattan, and then goes through a little window pane and smashes into a doll's house. So it's actually minuscule, but it lands there and it cracks open. A little spider comes out, just a little one comes out. But in a great bit of photography, again, it scuttles around the inside of the doll's house, the camera following it mesmerizingly. So of course it looks like it's giant in this wonderfully evocative doll's house full of different rooms with furnishings, and this spider's going around. Again, foreshadowing what's gonna happen, because that spider ain't gonna stay little for too long. But Charlotte, in her breakaway, going into people's apartments, finds the spider and takes it back to her apartment. And she loves these things, she loves critters like this. Puts it in a jar and she begins to feed it. And she also realises that it can communicate with her with little chirping noises. And like a little couplet, like means hungry, feed me now. So this place, as so many tenement complexes are, it's overrun with cockroaches. So she keeps finding bugs and feeding them to sting. Oh, sting. Why is it called sting? Spiders don't sting. They bite and they inject venom. They don't have stingers. Well, this girl, as I say, she writes her own comic book, and she looks along, well, what I'm going to call you, looks along all the books on her shelf and settles on The Hobbit, J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit. And of course, in The Hobbit, Bilbo gets a sword, and the sword is called Sting. In fact, I have it here. There's Sting right there. I would make it glow, but the batteries have died on it. God damn it. But she calls it Sting. Now the irony, of course, being that there's a spider called Sting, and in Lord of the Rings, Sting is used to kill Shelob, the spider, who is behind me here somewhere. But it's nice that they do that, and it's a nice name as well. It conjures up, anxious pain and like toxins. Yes, toxins, venom. And it's in a little jar, she feeds it, but it's getting bigger, alarmingly bigger. And it also finds a way to get out the jar and to go prowling of its own accord to meet the other residents of this very quirky apartment complex. And poor Ethan, her stepfather, he's onto he's onto a losing lot, because the girl that he's partnered up with, Charlotte's mother, well, her mother lives in the apartment above with the sister. Now, this place seems to be overrun with migrants because they're all like either Asian or Hungarian, Bavarian, and that includes, her name's Heather, played by Penelope Mitchell, who's Charlotte's mother. And the mother, Helga, has got Alzheimer's or dementia of some description and really doesn't know what the hell's going on around her. But she's living with her sister, so that's the auntie, and the auntie runs the place. She's the landlady, and she does not like. And they're very foreign speaking. So you've got this sort of Germanic, Teutonic duo living in this apartment. One's got Alzheimer's, and the other one doesn't really care. So Heather, the daughter, keeps going up and like talking to her mother, Helga, this one, and but of course the mother doesn't recognise her half the time. Oh, you should meet my daughter. So you've got the poignancy of this, and but the sister doesn't care anymore. What's the point? She says in like Germanic tones of Teutonic tyranny, and but she also runs the place. You have another tenant that you meet who's Italiano. What's her name? Maria, played by Silvia Colloca, who has a bit of a tragic background, which you don't really learn about. But our girl, Charlotte, knows all these people and skitters about all the apartments at her heart's content, and tries to get along with her stepfather, and he's trying his best. He really is. I have no idea what the mother's job is, but in a couple of scenes you see he's drawing, because he's an artist as well for comic books, and they're trying to get obviously Charlotte's comic book to be sold to the masses, and he's getting phone calls saying, we need all your work, we need it now. But he's so busy in the apartment complex fixing things, the bloody boiler, hinges, doors, fucking all sorts of stuff like that, he hasn't got the time to focus on it. And you get there's a little quirky, fun moment where they're bonding again, and it's her story that she's telling, and he's doing the artwork for it. Although she's a good artist as well, and one of the characters who's got fangs as well, and I think he's the professor or something like that anyway, and he's got glasses on, but he's like that, and she's like, I think we can. She's sitting on his knee as well. I think we can add eyes here. So she draws eyes into it, and he's like, yeah, I like the idea of that. And she goes, well, it shows more character in the eyes. And right, bedtime shots, off you go. Off she goes, and he rubs the eyes out because he likes it better the way it was previously. So you know the seeds are set for like discord, disharmony, and you understand where she's coming from. And she's got this spider, and this spider gets bigger, and she still loves this spider, but they realise that someone upstairs, the Asian resident, is a biologist, and he's got fish. He's trying to find a cure for pancreatic cancer, if I remember rightly, and he's using fish, but he's got other animals in there. Now, he's not some kind of professor, he's just a student, and Charlotte gets warned that don't go near him, but she does, and she takes the spider in there, and he's like, that's not a normal spider. She goes, I know, because I've googled it and I can't find any spider similar. And he's like, I'm not sure you should be keeping a spider like this in this building, because in the meantime people's pets have gone missing. Missing, you say? Oh, no. And then certain residents begin to suffer some severe mishaps because Sting is on the rampage, and Sting's getting bigger. And this, of course, will culminate in a furious, hyper frenetic finale of a much bigger spider scuttling all over the place, and people being cocooned, and how are we going to fight this thing off? Well, there you go. No spoilers there, folks. Really, I don't think so. It's great. I had a real good time with this. I am a confirmed arachnophobe. I love spiders. No contradiction in terms. I love them, I admire them, I think they are the custodians of nature and your household. If you've got spiders, then there's something nastier that you haven't got, because they're eating the other nastier thing. And spiders are shy, reclusive, they don't want to interact with us. But I am the unlucky recipient of a very nasty spider bite a couple of years ago. A lot of you guys know this. I reported on it quite often at the time, and it took a long time to heal. And it was just a domestic British spider. All spiders carry venom, all of them. But you get bitten by them all the time, but mostly you don't even notice because you've got no reaction to it. This one, I had a very bad reaction to it, and oops, yeah, it was like I had an extra knee on the back of my leg, and it took a while for it to go down with intense courses of antibiotics. But anyway, so spider movies like The Curse of the Black Widow, Arachnophobia, Eight-Legged Freaks, the old Jack Harlow movie Tarantula, The Incredible Shrinking Man. It's just a normal house spider, an American house spider, admittedly, down in the cellar. But our boy shrinks down to a size where it's a monster and he has to battle this spider. They're the classics of arachnoid terror. This film fits very nicely into that genre. But what I will say is, it's genuinely fun and not frightening. Now, I went into this really thinking, because I'd seen the trailer a few times, and I thought, well, when this thing gets bigger, it's going to be nightmarish. And yet it never was. And I'm wondering if the reason for that is because, well, two things. It's a character that Charlotte gets to know and to love. So there's a camaraderie there, even though we know what it's doing behind the scenes, and she only comes later to realise what's happening and has to, change her values and opinions on this 8-legged bastard. But because of that bond, you kind of like, and it's making her happy. You kind of like the bloody thing, and plus it's done by Weta. Now, I said this is filmed in Australia, set in New York, but filmed in Australia. And Peter Jackson, The Hobbit again, and Lord of the Rings, Shelob, and them spiders from The Hobbit. Weta did all the effects. Weta do the effects for this movie. So this spider, it starts off very little, but gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it does get fairly large. Not exactly like toppling cars and like pushing buildings over. Not like that size. But then again, who knows? If it got outside, it could get a hell of a lot bigger. But it's big enough. And but they handled all the effects, the practical effects and the visuals. And I was never frightened by Shelob in Lord of the Rings. And I thought I would be, but I never was. And I wasn't frightened by the spiders in The Hobbit. So, and Weta did all of those. Weta also did the infamous spider pit sequence from King Kong, as in Peter Jackson's King Kong, based on the real legendary lost sequence from the 1933 King Kong, which I've talked about so many times, the spider pit sequence. And the bugs and critters that take on all the sailors there and devour them all, I wasn't frightened by any of that either. So it's a combination of the fact that you've got to know this spider and you kind of like it as well in a strange, bizarre sort of way. But Weta just don't seem to be able to make a frightening spider. Your opinion may be different than mine, but I am terrified of these things. But this didn't frighten me. You do see the spider a fair bit, especially when it's little and it's scuttling about. And but it's not a hairy spider, and people are afraid of the hairier ones, and yet they always said about when you like a massive tarantula, they realised that when they were making these later movies that when you magnify a tarantula and you see it, it's actually surprisingly cozy looking because of all the hair on it, and it can fire the hair off as well, which is an even worse thing than its bloody bite. Tarantulas aren't that dangerous, by the way, but they fire the hairs off and they're major irritants. Get them in the eyes, get them up your nose, in your throat, choke on the buggers like. But when you magnify them for the sake of a horror movie, they're like big cuddly teddy bears. So in things like 8-Legged Freaks and all that, where they had hairy spiders and stuff, they had to shave or CGI remove hair from these things, so they were a bit more meaty and bony to make them more frightening. Well, this Sting is super sleek, like a Black Widow. Starts off like that anyway, but then just gets bigger, and you do see the close-ups of its mandibles, its face, and its eyes, and all that kind of stuff. But I was never once frightened by it. Some of the kills are gruesome, I will say that. One in particular, which I'll cover later, is very nasty indeed, and contains, I can say this right now, contains a real violent impact where you go, oh no! And several other people who I was with literally shrieked at this moment. But then that scene, something worse happens afterwards, where everyone was like, they couldn't look, but I could. It wasn't bothering me. It didn't affect me in that way at all. I love the fact that you care about these weird, eccentric residents, and I love the fact that it's all entirely contained within this apartment building, and it reminded me of things like Rosemary's Baby, The Sentinel, and more recently and more completely, Evil Dead Rise. Very similar to that, and of course that was filmed in Australia as well. But the music is great. You're hearing the score right now by Moscow-born composer Anna Drubich. And it's a quirky score. A lot of strings, a lot of weird gonging percussion. It's playful. And again, that's something which maybe detracts from the terror elements of this movie. Because, again, I wasn't afraid at all. I was enjoying it. It was exciting. As it's a slow burn thing. But once you get into like the final third, things have ramped up spectacularly. And it's a fight to the death. And it's pretty grueling, to be honest. There's no major shocks. Everything that happens towards the end has been foreshadowed. I'll just say that. But it still works. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with following all the tropes of this kind of genre. We've seen it all a million times before, whether it's spiders or other kind of critters or monsters or bogeymen or whatever. You've seen all of these tropes trotted out a million times before. The music, as I say, is playful and mischievous, but it works. The performances are great. The eccentrics, the aging microbiologist student is quirky and bizarre. The two sisters, the mother and the grandmother upstairs, yeah, they're quite bizarre. There's a lot of humanity coming from Charlotte. Now, I'll be honest, she's played by Alia Brown, who was American born but moved to Australia. Or, sorry, was Australian born, then moved to LA and then went back to film this. Whatever. There's a combination. Everyone here is Aussie and Yank. Sort of cross-pollinated. And she's wonderful. At first I thought, Christ, if that was your daughter, she's like a fucking spy. You know, she's crawling around all these air shafts and that. Like, what the hell? You know, you've got to control her. And they do realise that, you know, she has been in the upstairs apartment because she basically gives herself away. And it's like, Charlotte, you've got to stop doing this. You've got to stop behaving. But we know why she's acting like this. And there will be a real confrontation, which it's just circumstances build up, and she will blame Ethan for everything going wrong, and you're not my dad, where's my real dad, and all this. And you genuinely care, because she is a three-dimensional character. Yes, she loves spiders. Yes, she's a bit of a bizarrity, but man, she can draw. And then with just an emotional breakdown, you feel for her, but you feel for Ethan as well, because he's going through the same thing. And it's just you're an outsider observing a family going through hell just because of circumstances. And then you throw a bloody big spider into the mix and people getting killed left, right and centre. You know, it's a recipe for disaster, isn't it? Oh, cheers y'all. I'm almost at the end of this, but cheers y'all. But the effects are good. I say I wasn't frightened by the spider at all, but that was just me. You may be different. They do all the things, the shadow of the spider moving about. You can hear it. There's lots of noises in the walls and stuff. There's plenty of that. Great sound design on it. Thank you for emphasising my point there. And the attacks and the jolts, they're all there. But if you're a seasoned pro with these things, nothing's going to surprise you here, nothing at all. But it's still handled well. Aliens is behind me there. Why? Nothing to do with spiders, not really. But Carrie Henn playing Newt. Newt scuttles about all the air shafts, and the xenomorphs in this movie, and certainly in Alien, are stemmed from bug entomology and the logic and science behind what bugs do. Now, Sting will cocoon her victims, but they do not look like webs. They are not like webs at all. They are exactly like what you see in Alien and Aliens. Well, the extended cut of Alien, where Dallas and Brett are cocooned. And especially in Aliens, where it's like some kind of secreted resin. Yeah, but secreted from what? They're meshed in this kind of really space age sort of stuff. And of course, it's not a terrestrial arachnid. It's come from up there. So we know nothing of its biology. As the I've said about it can communicate and sort of chirrup, you know, its hunger, you know, and like she'll mimic that as well. But she learns to play other noises from other nature, other animals and insects, and Sting can mimic them. And she actually says, "So you're a mimic." But she says this to the biologist guy, and he says like, "Well, spiders have no vocal cords. They can't articulate anything like that." Well, this one can. So what the hell kind of spider is it? A bloody big, hungry, nasty one. There aren't that many kills. I'm not going to, again, no spoilers just yet. There aren't that many kills, but the kills are still gruesome enough. Gruesome enough. And the characters are all really, they're oddities. And a lot of the film is spent with these characters. The first half of the movie, Sting is there and things are happening. And we get to see, she's getting bigger and bigger and far more intelligent and cunning. But you're spending a lot more time with the characters and your main 3 family members. Well, 4, include the baby as well. 5 if you include Sting. But it pays off. And the film it's not a long movie. I don't think it's even an hour and a half. I think it's less than that. But it wraps its story up very nice and neat. Another film I was reminded of was Batteries Not Included in the apartment complex, and the way that the eccentric characters have to come together and or fight against each other, but with something weird and unearthly, you know, thrown into the mix. The cinematography by Brad Shield. Did I write that down wrong? Brad Shield, I think the name is. Again, my handwriting's let me down there. Is amazing. To the point where it could be distracting. Essentially, during the first half, where it's a little bit quieter, it's character build, the camera is ever roving, and I love that sort of thing. It's sort of Sam Raimi or Dean Cundy with slightly restrained, not going helter skelter. Because what will happen, you'll have people walking into apartment rooms or even the basement, the boiler room, you're down there quite a bit. And so someone walks in and the camera they're walking towards you and the camera will meet them and then go further behind them as they turn and it'll come back and follow them again. Now I like that. It's completely unnecessary, but it's a stylistic flourish which I actually enjoy. But I began to notice this happening a hell of a lot. A lot of seemingly one-take shots as well, and which I thought, well, I like the fact you're doing this. You're putting a lot of effort into this, but is it actually necessary? Are we doing it for the sake of doing it? And I began to clock this time and time again during the first half. The second half, I must have just accepted it, but I'm kind of like on the fence with that. I loved this sort of cinematic athleticism and dexterity, and I love the fact you're forever moving because it works with the spider when you're going down these ventilation shafts. God, I couldn't say that at all. Ventilation shafts. Jesus. And it's sort of claustrophobic, a bit of like John McClane as well, going through the bowels of Nakatomi Plaza. But you got that sense as well. And of course, from Aliens, Newt, a resilient little blonde moppet who's survived, and you've got Charlotte, who's a little blonde moppet who is a survivor. And certainly, you're going to need her, put it this way. She may have brought Sting into the environment and looked after her and fed her, and then inadvertently unleashed her. But you're going to need her, put it that way. She knows certain things that Sting doesn't like. Again, I'm not saying nothing right now. That will come later. But the camera work, it is wonderful. The film looks amazing. The similarities to Aliens are definitely there. totally on show. A little girl crawling through air shafts and things, and a bug. This is the bug hunt, and you've got a bug hunter in this. You've got an exterminator who's actually really good as well. Like he is played by Jermaine Fowler. He's Frank the pest controller, the exterminator. I think John Goodman from Arachnophobia, but also he's dressed kind of like a Ghostbuster, and he's a bit of a jive ass motherfucker. You know, he's sharp talking, but he's a likable character as well. There's a fair bit of swearing in this, which is something that I didn't quite expect. The tone of the film is almost like a kid's stepping stone into horror. Think The Woman in Black, the one with Daniel Radcliffe, the remake of the original, which I loved. And again, it was genuinely scary, brilliantly made, fantastically performed by all and sundry. Great score. It was a great ghost horror movie, but for people who weren't weaned on horror movies, so you're talking like you sort of 10 to 12-year-olds who want to get into horror, it was a great stepping stone with some intense scenes, some visceral shocks, and it was a great sort of segue into, you know, the harder stuff. Of course, I mean, I know you and me, all of us, we grew up on these things. Well, I know I certainly did. So there's no shocks for me these days. But this film seems to play along those lines. It's almost, I don't want to say Disney. But it is almost like a Disney attempt at doing a horror film, where you've got gory deaths, you've got some intense scenes of fright and nastiness, and you've got swearing as well. A lot of F-bombs are dropped, left, right and centre. Even Charlotte swears at one point. And but again, it still felt like that little stepping stone for the younger audience members to, oh god, this is it's about spiders. It's a nasty horror film about spiders. There's gory deaths and there's swearing. Yeah, but it's still quite tame when you think about it, and it's because of the tone set up by the movie, and that could be a good move, I think, a wider audience, and it's definitely worth watching. I really, really enjoyed it. Having other people around me react the way that they did was actually a bit of a boon, because I've not seen the last few films I've seen. I've been almost the only person in the cinema, and there's been no sort of, you know, joint reaction taking place. Now, whether I jump out my seat or not is irrelevant. If everyone else does, then I understand. Well, that clearly worked. It didn't do it for me, but I'm massively seasoned and professional in this, so I'm not scared by these things. And yet I should have been scared by a bloody giant spider, and yet I wasn't. But it's not a failing of the film that I wasn't scared by that. It's just that I know this stuff inside out. So, I recommend Sting. I thought it was just sheer tip-top entertainment. I enjoyed the quirky characters. I enjoyed the cinematography. I enjoyed the effects. The score's great. And it was a great bit of escapism. And there was a bit of heart and soul to it as well. Yes, it was really familiar and probably a bit cliched, but it still worked because you cared about these characters. So there you go. Folks, I recommend Sting for your spider-fueled nightmares. Now, that was the non-spoiler review. Now let's leap into the nitty-gritty of it all. The noxious, caustic cocoon web strands of it all, because that's what they are. Right, okay. We'll dig a little deeper now. If you don't want to hear any of this, please just shut me off and vamoose. Go and watch the film. If you're in the UK, it doesn't come out for a while yet, officially. So I was lucky to get this. But it's worth it, and I definitely recommend it. So anyway, now let's talk a bit more in depth. Let's have a swig of whiskey first. Why don't we? Cheers, y'all. There's a weird thing that Kia Roach Turner, the director, who also wrote this. He wrote this as well. The film starts off in the, well, not in the future, but in the present, and then we'll go back 5 days before. And I don't know the reason why they did this, but it starts off with Helga. Helga is Heather's mother, so Charlotte's grandmother, right? The one who's got dementia. And she's played by Nonnie Hazelhurst. And she's knitting. And I kind of like that because there's a lot of folkloric imagery to do with grandmothers who are actually giant spiders knitting. Trust me, there is. And like they're actually they can become a giant spider. They're living in a web and they're knitting, and that's what she's doing. And I thought that's a nice little play because they're taking in aliens, they're taking in Charlotte's Web, they're taking in Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit with Sting and obviously Shelob associations, and this old spinster. In the film Time Bandits, there was a deleted scene of two old women sitting there knitting, but they're actually giant spiders, and it's a terrifying sequence, but it's not in the final cut of the movie, sadly. And she's knitting away, but she hears noises. All right, and you're like, what the hell is that? And it's big noises in the walls and the ventilation shafts. So she goes and calls the Frank, the exterminator, but she gets like the yellow pages out, and she's like, yeah, they actually had. Do they have yellow pages anymore? Anywhere in the world? But she did anyway. And she finds the exterminator, and but again, her and her sister, the vicious auntie who runs the place, they speak with heavy accented Germanic, voices, and of course, as we learn, she's not all there, and she's trying to call this guy, and there's little notes. Yeah, okay. Well, you got noise in the walls. Well, that could be anything. It could be rats, But I'll come round. I'll sort it out. And where are you? And she's got stickers, saying where she is, her name, where she is. And then he arrives in the middle of this blizzard, and he's trying to buzz to get that in there. And she's going, "Who are you?" Because he's like, "Look, you called me about the noises in the walls. You've got a bug problem. There's something going on. You called me, I'm the exterminator. Just press the button to buzz me in." So you're learning about her. And he goes up there, and I'm just trying to think now. He goes in, and first of all, she wouldn't let him in. And like, what? Why are you here? Well, you called me about the noises in the walls. I've got no noises in the walls. What are you on about? And then you hear, and he goes, those noises in the walls. He's already seen from one of the grill plates in the walls some horrible oozy gooey stuff. The film's got a lot of gooey stuff in it, and he sees all these. He's like, he's got his gloves on, like, what the hell's this shit? And he openly swears in front of customers and all that, and old women. Doesn't seem to give a toss, this guy. But you like him at the same time. Goes in there, and like, it's coming from around there, and he finds. Does he find blood on the floor? Yeah, he does. He finds blood on the floor. Oh, of course, right. I know what happens now. He finds blood on the floor, and like, there's another one of these grills. This apartment complex is full of grills on walls and skirting boards, and one of them's come off, and there's blood all around there. And he's like, but what's all that? Next thing you hear, he screams, like, obviously Sting gets him and drags. He claws his way into the room where she's gone back to knitting again now, and he's like screaming and screaming, and he gets dragged away, and then she just sits there and carries on knitting, and then it goes 5 days earlier, and then the story begins, and you'll recap on that sequence later in the movie. I just don't know why they did it, why they did that particular stylistic touch. It doesn't change anything. You could have started it, and just played it out in continuity, and it would have played just as well. So I don't know why they did this. It's a kind of strange. I know it's a horrifying and bizarre intro, but it also once you've seen the film, you're like, well, why did you do that? That was absolutely totally unnecessary. It's not a major issue. Trust me, it isn't. And then you'll be introduced to Charlotte, scuttling around all these ducts. In the meantime, you've got the title sequence, the meteorite and the little egg, little whatever it is, goes into the doll's house. Little sting comes out, crawls all around to fabulous music. Let's play it. In fact, it's opening now. This kind of bizarre, quirky music. Listen to this from Anna Drubich. It reminds me. Did you ever see the flight attendant with is it Kaylee Cuomo from The Big Bang Theory? And I loved season 1 of that, but I didn't like season 2. But Blake Neely did a score for that, which was full of it sounds just like this score, very quirky. Come on, kind of kick in, will you, please? But Charlotte finds this spider, puts it into a jar, takes it back to hers, and starts feeding it bugs, gives it a name, is fascinated by it, talks to it, loves it, and it does seem to respond to her. For a lot of this early portion, it lives in the lid of the jar, so she has to go like to look, to see what it's doing, and she put like a cockroach in and a leg or something, a big spiked fucking. It's walking on big spiked high heels. This spider, it goes, and she's like, "Wow, awesome!" And you're hungry, and and she responds to it as well. Oh, that's your hunger noise. Yeah, you're hungry. Okay. And then she brings in fucking thousands of bugs and just plows them in there. This thing's getting bigger. And then a great sequence, again early on, we see the lid just go because Sting has learned how to undo the lid from the inside and gets out and will cause a bit of trouble. These other people who live there, there's a dog there, Bonnie, I think it's called. There's a cat, there's a parrot or a parakeet. I never know these things. And all these will get fucking done in like at some point. And then that girl, the Italian one, Maria, right? Is it Maria? Yeah, played by Silvia Coloca. Very nice. I maybe didn't pick up on something here, but Ethan, don't forget Ethan, the stepfather, is he's played by Ryan Core, by the way, and he's good. He's great, in fact. He's henpecked, harassed, and he hasn't got time to do these comic books because of all the work he's got to do. And the woman in charge of the place is, of course, the auntie of his partner. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and but she's going to sack him at some point. She just says, like, look, you're not doing your job. Hey, by the way, her name is Gunter. I thought Gunter was a male name, but she's called Gunter. Anyway, he's like, yeah. What am I trying to? I'm trying to imitate a voice, a bit of speech which I can't remember. She basically says to him, he's bashing the boiler. Not a euphemism. He's bashing the boiler. She said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, it's working now. Like, Ethan, this is not working out. Maybe we need to let you go." What? You're going to deny your own family a paycheck? How does that work? Do you hate me? No, I don't hate you. I think you're a nice man, but I think I do everyone a favour to help you out the door. He's like, what the bitch? So you got that, but Maria, there's something there which he goes to see Maria to fix. I think it's under the sink or whatever, and she has the little dog called Bonnie, and she's nice. She's Italiano, MILF, and yeah, and he apologizes. He says, like, look, I know you're going through it, and I'm so sorry. And you kind of cut to a picture of her with a bunch of people, what I took to be her family or her brothers. But I'm not. Ethan looks like he's in that picture. Now, I could be completely wrong about that, but I thought, have these two been prior, partners? But it's never explained. To my knowledge, you don't find out what her backstory is, but we know that she's hit the bottle. Anyway, when Sting gets to grips with her, she picks up that picture I've just been talking about, and she's like that. And Sting just comes round the back of the picture. Yeah, she hasn't got that big yet, but anyway, fucking leaps on her face, and she gets bitten on the cheek like that, and it's ripped part of it. It's bitter on the head somewhere. There's blood pouring down her face, and it's got this big fucking bite here. And she goes into the bathroom and sees all this, and and then it goes for her again, and this is the bit that made everyone go, "Oh no!" She falls back and she smacks her head on the bath, really bad. It's the crunching impact. You go, oh! She's fractured her skull. She's broke her spine. Neck's broken. She's dead. Well, she's paralysed, but she ain't dead. Bang, like that. And then next thing you know, Sting comes in the doorway and goes, literally walks in and goes, oh, there you are. And she's like, because her head just turns, but she's knackered and done in, probably paralysed. And she's like, oh no. And it comes up and it goes in her mouth. Oh, hi! And we see the lump in her throat, and then down her chest and into her abdomen. And then one of Sting's legs comes out the abdomen, slices. But it cuts away pretty quickly. But you're like, oh, fuck, what has it done to her? What has it done? It's a really horrible death. But primarily, I mean, it's going to get you on 2 counts there. The fucking impact, and then going in her mouth like that. But again, similar scenes like that in, say, Halloween 3, which is over there somewhere. Bugs coming out of people's mouths and all that. I don't like. And in Lucio Fulci's The Beyond, I've covered The Beyond. I've covered Halloween 3 as well. I've got all these fucking movies. In The Beyond, there is a sequence where a guy's going to find the old occult tome, the Book of Ibon, in the library. But supernatural forces knock him off one of them big ladders that they move along in the bookcases, which I love, but I love those. We've got 2 libraries here, and I always wanted to have a ladder to move along the bookshelves. And he falls off this thing and lands on his back, a bit like this girl, and gets sort of paralysed. And then these demonic spiders all crawl towards him, and it's like, oh, you're joking. And what these spiders do is, oh dear God, they crawl all over him, they get into his face, they open his mouth and pull his tongue out, and in close up bite into his tongue and fucking yank it around. They pull an eyeball out. Oh God. Now the scene is horrific enough, and there's real tarantulas used in that sequence, but they use pipe cleaner spiders as well, but that does not dilute the sequence at all in its horrific aspect, and it's truly nightmarish. So yeah, this sequence in Sting should have been like, oh my God, and yet it didn't have any effect on me. It did on the people around me. It did. There was some shuddering and recoiling and screaming and but not from me. But it does have the desired effect on other people, so it will work for some people, definitely, without a doubt. And but the dog, that Bonnie seems to somehow get away, and because obviously Marie is being killed, and the dog gets away, and they find the dog in Charlotte and Ethan's apartments, and Heather. Let's not forget the mother, and the baby boy. I forgot the bloody name of the baby boy. No, I've definitely forgotten it. Brad, was it? No, I don't know. No, Brad was the cinematographer, wasn't it? Yeah, Brad Shield. And so Ethan takes the dog back, and of course he's the maintenance man. He's got skeleton keys for all the apartments. So he opens it. He's knocked on the door, and no answer. Opens it, lets the dog in, and like he's gonna go away, but he thinks, I can't hear it. Pushes the door open, goes in, sees blood from the first attack, sees blood, and then sees her body, and then you get the only other guy that's in this movie is a copper that turns up like and is asking him questions and all this. How come you got a key for it? Well, I'm the maintenance guy and all this, like, but it, and they see the body get carted off, but clearly it was, look at it, you know, where do these wounds come from? There's no investigation that happens. I mean, things massively speed up anyway, because what Charlotte does, she knows that Eric, played by Danny Kim, who's this Asian biologist, she knows he's in one of the apartments. She goes, I'm going to go and see him, and Ethan's like, no, don't go and see him. He's not a professor, he's not an expert, he's just a student. Stay away from him. But she goes anyway, and he's like, what, you've got a spider? Let me see the spider. And he's like, it talks to you. They've got no vocal cords and all that. And he's like, look, you don't know what kind of spider this is. I don't think you can have a spider in this apartment complex. I'm going to have to call, you know, health and safety and whatever, pest control. I don't know what it fucking says, like, or the university or whatever. And she's like, no. I came up here because I wanted a bigger glass case for her because she's outgrown the jar. So he's got vivariums everywhere because he's doing these experiments to try and cure pancreatic cancer or whatever the hell he's doing. Sushi, I don't know what he's doing. But she's like, look, can you give me one? Okay, yeah, I'll do that. But I only ask one thing. Leave me alone while I transfer the spider to its new environment. That's all I ask. So off she goes. She's not quite trusting of him, like, but off she goes. And anyway, he's got other ideas, and he's like, he phones Ethan and says, like, look, your daughter brought this fucking spider to me, and I don't think we should have it in the apartment complex. This could be toxic, could be very dangerous. I've never seen this kind of species before. Husky dog has just arrived after its soggy, rain-sodden walk. But so he's like, what spider? This bloody spider? Are you kidding me? I've got to, oh shit, just get rid of the damn thing. So so that's what, well, Eric's not going to do that. Eric has other ideas and begins to start feeding. He's got animals there, like rabbits and other raccoons and I don't know, other stuff, like, and like, he's still hungry. So he starts feeding Sting. And of course, Sting is getting bigger all the time, and Sting is always hungry. So he's feeding this bloody thing like, well, that's going to go tits up, isn't it? And it does for him, obviously. But if this then leads into a confrontation between Ethan and Charlotte, Charlotte's going, you know, where did you... He confronts her, you know, Eric said that you had a dangerous spider. She's like, what? Why has he told you this? Well, he's told me because the dog's drinking water there. But waterphone accompaniment taking place, and but you can't do that. Well, I have done it. It's dangerous. You shouldn't have that in here. It's ridiculous, and it causes a massive argument between the two of them because that's her pet. She loves it, and you know, you're not even my father, and he's already had a terrible day with everything going wrong. People shouting at him and people dying as well, like horrific discoveries. And he's trying to fix, he's trying to put the scar lead into something in the back of the big telly, and it's not going in, and it bazzazzes him, so he fucking punches their flat screen TV, but in front of everyone. And I'm like, what the hell's got into you? I should never have done that. But it sparked this big argument off, like, you're not my father. And he goes, well, yeah, but at least I'm here. Well, my father can't be here because he's in Thailand. No, he isn't. Your father, it's across the Brooklyn Bridge. He could be here within 26 minutes, but he never bothers coming, does he? And Charlotte, this is the moment I said, like, this genuine heart and soul and pathos to these characters. and she breaks down. She's been brazen and hard, but then you see the young girl, and she crumbles, and it's, oh, you understand that she runs off, and like, she goes, by the way, the changes you made to my comic book, they're shit, you know, it's just bullshit, I don't like anything you've done, you're not my father. Oh, and it's all gone horrible. And she goes and looks at it, what she's done in the past comic book, and there's a bit of, well, an epic bit of foreshadowing here. She says, like, because Fang Girl, her character in the comic books, she says, like, in one of the panels, it's like, I need to use all my powers. I hate my dad. I want my dad dead, and I use all my powers. And then she realizes, I've made a mistake. I want my dad back alive again. I must use my powers to bring him back. And you can see where this is going to pan out in the end of the movie, and it does. Of course, it does. And Eric's been killed as well. She goes to confront Eric, and Eric's, well, he's cocooned. Say about these cocoons, they look just like the people who are cocooned in Aliens in Sub-Level 3. But once you are cocooned, it's almost like, again, like a bit like Aliens. There's almost acid in it. If you try and break it off, it tears your skin away with it as well. So it's not like webs. It's more bizarre and alien-esque. But the spider is an alien, isn't it? Also, in the meantime, what's her name? Helga, who's the nasty bitch. Who even says, like, when Heather's going to see her mother who's got dementia, and like, oh, she meet my daughter, and of course she is the daughter, and she's going like, yeah, I'd love to do that. And this bitch, Gunther, is going like, what's the point? It's useless. And she's just like, you bitch. Well, her parrot has been, Sting's got in there, got the bars apart, and you see animals like the dog and the cat and the parrot. They're kind of like spread-eagled and covered in all this goo, but they've been chewed, they've been eaten down to the core. So it is pretty nasty. Like, this thing is eating its victims quite speedily as well. Well, Gunther goes after, what's she going after? Is it, I forget now. But she ends up going into one of these, again, the grate and the air shaft, and she's in there, torch, and then it's right there in her face. Ah! Like, you see, there's a lot of scenes of people being dragged into these sort of ductworks, but what you don't see is Sting itself dragging a body. You don't see that. You just see bodies get dragged around corners, bodies disappear into these things, and then go down through the ductwork and drop down another shaft. But you don't see the spider itself dragging anybody, and I think that was a bit of a strange omission. I'd like to have seen that. So you got the scale. You see the spider when it's big coming at you, but you don't really see it in sort of the same shot. Well, maybe a little bit as other people when it's bigger size, which I think is a strange omission to have done. Would have looked great, but so things rapidly escalate at this point. So you've lost Gunther, you've lost Maria, you've lost Eric. Bug Guy is back, but Bug Guy, remember at the start, he gets taken, and then we go back 5 days and we build up to this moment. Bug Guy ain't dead. Frank ain't dead, yes, but we'll come on to that. Little conversation in Charlotte's apartment between Heather and Ethan, and then Sting makes an appearance and puts the bite on both of them and paralyzes the two of them and drags them both off, but they're still highly conscious. Drags them off into the ductwork. Charlotte sees Ethan being dragged through and realizes, shit, that's Sting, that's my Sting, and Sting's gone fucking rogue. Oh dear. But she's already worked out previously that it doesn't like mothballs, and that when it shoots its kind of like secreted web sort of enzyme out, a mothball sort of breaks it apart and dissolves it like acid on it. So we go all Home Alone, we go all Arnie, we go all tooling up And she gets into the kitchen and she gets on, and oh no! I've just remembered. She crawls through again. She gets a gun filled with all this sort of stuff, a squirty, a Nerf gun, like and all this kind of stuff. And she goes through the ductwork again. She comes up by her grandmother, the one who's got dementia, and she's knitting there again. And she's like, "Hi dear," and all that. Like, she's like, "Listen, grandmother, you seen anything strange? Anything scary at all?" "Oh, there is the spider." And it's like, "So you've seen the spider, but the spider hasn't done anything to you?" And then she smells the grandmother's cardigan, mothballs, runs to the wardrobe, right, mothballs, right, that's it, right, there's our weapon. So she gets the blender, she pours loads of mothballs in there, loads of water, blends it all up, and like she fills like, you know, little canisters, little plastic bottles with this stuff, squirty bottles, and like, and she's got her Nerf gun full of all this stuff. So she's tooled up. It is pure Home Alone, like. But she knows the spider won't touch it because the mothball scent is obviously putting her off. So she pours some of this stuff, this water, mothball combination solution all over herself, like, and then goes to go and get back her mum, her brother, oh, the baby's gone as well. Should have mentioned that. The baby, it took the baby as well, and her stepfather, and goes off to attack. So she sprays the stuff all around the ductworks, goes in after it, like, and cue lots of creepy scenes of her going through all these shafts that we've seen so many times now. But there's scuttling about taking place, and she'll find some other bodies, you know, animals that have been chewed up and all that. But she'll find Ethan. Now, Ethan has already woken up and seen his partner, her mother, Heather. He's seen her, and to be honest, these are quite disturbing scenes because they're gagging on this stuff and they're throwing up because they're meshed in it. You try and break it, it'll tear your skin off. Now, they know this thing's going to come back, so it's a terrifying scenario to be in. Now, the mother something gives way and she falls straight down into the basement, obviously. But so she's disappeared with the baby as well, and Charlotte will stumble across Ethan, her stepfather, and she's like, "I'm going to get you out of this." Like, and he's like, "You can't come near me because look, like, I tried to break it and all his flesh is ripped off his hand." She goes, No, I've got this stuff which will work, and I've got this stuff which works as well. Cheers, y'all. So she like and sprays all this and gets him out of it. Like, kind of a Sting attacks at this stage. Sting might attack at this stage, but they end up down in the basement. Take a big tumble down to the basement, and so the mother's there, the baby's there, Ethan's there, Charlotte's there, but this thing's going to come down again, and they're trapped in there as well. Now, I'm not sure how this happens, but Frank, the exterminator, is down there as well, and he's like, "What the fuck is going on?" Now, he's already spoken to Charlotte about the spider. Remember, as I said in the earlier bit, like, he's going like, you know, what? He's checking around all the apartments, for all these noises, not knowing what the hell has happened as yet. Hasn't seen all the blood and stuff and been dragged away at that point. But he says to Charlotte, you know, oh, is this your room? She walks in and finds him there. And yeah, it's my room, yeah. I was going, I'm checking for like bugs and rats and stuff like that. You got any pets? She goes, I've got a pet spider. So, you got a pet spider? Why have you got a spider? They don't make good pets, you know. And she's like, well, nothing wrong with it. It's my spider. He's like, well, listen, dogs love you. Cats love you half the time. Spiders only love two things: eating and killing. You know, there's no compassion in a spider. But she's like, no, I'm having none of this. Like, but anyway, so they've all met before. So Frank's down there as well, and Frank goes ballistic on these. What the fuck are you doing? Like, it's your spider that's done this. How did we kill it? How did we kill it? But Charlotte's going like, I know it doesn't like mothballs and like this solution of mothball and water. So we got this when it comes down here because it can't get out. So he takes one of her canisters and he just pours it all over himself, like, because obviously it won't come near him. And she goes like, that's our weapon against it, you dickhead. And then with the boiler, they've got like a waste disposal unit as well down there, which is like a trash compactor. Think Terminator, like that. And it comes down, but it's like a chamber. And he was bashing hard at this. He was trying to work on the boiler, trying to work on this thing as well, like. And so a lot of it's been foreshadowed. Anyway, Sting will make an appearance, and it will drag Frank again through one of these ducts. But this time he ain't going to come back, because an absolute shower of gore comes out, and they're all like, oh no. They also managed to set off the sprinkler system. So you've got, I thought, oh, they're going to get flooded, they're going to be drowning in it as well. An extra thriller moment. But sprinklers coming down. But no, the problem is, it's washed all the protective mothball water combo off them. And they go, it's coming down. What are we going to do? Let's crawl through. So the family, the once dysfunctional family, have got to unite and fight. And the music for that's coming up in a minute, actually. So they crawl through this trash compactor thing and get into another little compartment. But they're totally fucking sealed in. And they're waiting for Sting to come and get them. Now, they put a boarding up and Sting's fucking leg comes through, punches through, it's like it's cutting people and all that. And you're seeing Sting is much bigger now, and it's coming through this little duct where the thing comes down, and it's going to get in there. But they've got the control panel. It's not happening. And then like Ethan remembers, oh God, it's come loose from the wall socket. So he asks that Sting's coming down towards him through this little chamber, and they're trapped in another chamber, screaming, ah! And Sting's like, yeah, I'm gonna get you all. And he's reaching round and he's trying to, and it is quite nail biting, to be honest. He's trying to just connect this, put it back in there, and then obviously hit the thing. But he does it fine. Sting's almost in there. It's gonna get him, and he manages to do it. But he collapses. And he's like, his heart's just given way. Everything's just been too much. It's been an eventful, shitty day. And down he goes. And like, Charlotte realises, shit, and the spider's almost on him. Oh, bug juice everywhere. And then, oh, fucking hell. It does get everyone in the face as well. Like, and but Sting has been crushed. Think the T-800, the endoskeleton, and the eye just going and winking out, you're terminated, fucker. So they've killed Sting, and but where Ethan's dead. So Heather starts giving him like fucking chest pumps and all that, and breathing into his gob and all that, trying to resuscitate him. And Charlotte remembers her comic strip, use all my powers, please bring my dad back to life. I'm going to count to 3, which is in the comic strip panel. And 1, 2, 3. And of course, because it's happy, isn't it? Or is it? Ethan wakes up and everyone's okay. And she goes, I love you, Daddy. And it's cliched, it's totally goofball, corny stuff. It's all the tropes you know and probably despise. But you know what? It worked for me. I actually enjoyed all these elements. And he's back and everyone's hugging. And, hey, they're still, to my knowledge, trapped down there because they couldn't get out of this. Everything was blocked. They're sealed in. So I don't know how they're going to get out of it. And where shit, that glorious camera work, the cinematography, the camera will slide away from them and go to what's quite clearly just around the corner. A whole load of eggs. Alien spider arachnid eggs. And as the camera sort of zooms in, one goes, think the face huggers and all that, and another one's going to come out. But it's going to be loads of them, isn't there? So are we talking Sting 2? I mean, clearly there was a sting in the tail here because no one could say they're surprised by this. It's just another expected cliche. But as I say, it worked. And looking around, everyone was kind of like, they had grins on their faces because they were like, it's what they expected, and the film delivered on pretty much every count. Yeah, you've seen it all before, but it does it with a certain amount of style, panache, quirky eccentricity, which I appreciated. And yeah, there's some visceral elements to it. I wouldn't say that it ain't that nasty. It isn't. In this country, because there was no certificate, funnily enough, showing before this. So, I know, bombshell there. But it won't be more than a 15 in the UK. It's probably R-rated in America. I don't know. It's out in America already, so a lot of you guys have probably seen it. So, and it's from the last I heard, it was doing pretty well. It was playing at some big on the bigger screens. So, you know, there's some trust in this movie. Whether it means there's meant to be a sequel or not, I don't know. What would be the point? It's nice to have a film have that little, oh my god, it's not over yet, without having to go and do another movie. You don't need to do it. It's just, oh no, it's not over. But leave it at that. Just leave it at that. That said, of course, you kind of want to see how big do these things actually get. And you want to see them rampaging down city streets and stuff and toppling cars and running through shopping malls. If you actually had a spider, say the size of, I don't know, a fucking SUV, you're never going to outrun that thing. If that got outside onto the street, the speed of these things and the way that they pounce, it's game over for humanity. It really, you wouldn't have a fucking hope in hell. But in films, of course, there's always a way of getting around, and they slow down and they tease their victims. No, they'd be on you in a fucking flash. But things like Eight-Legged Freaks, which I love, but it's a huge letdown because the body count is actually almost minimal, because everyone's been dragged off into the mines and the caves and just cocooned, and they go and save everybody. So that's a cop-out to me. Now in this movie, at least people do die, although there isn't that many that die. There's only about 4 victims. Is it 4? Frank, Gunter, Maria, Eric, and a bunch of animals. That's it. I mean, obviously, the grandmother survives, and the spider's obviously been walking past there. She's been like, oh, okay, whatever, you know. This is the final fight. It's great, isn't it? It's that metallic anvil. Dang, 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 dang. It's a great score. And it does build to a nice, exciting climax. But as giant spider movies go, it's fun, entertaining, got some excitement to it, but it didn't scare me one iota, and I find that a bit weird. Now I know that Infested, the French one, doesn't hold back, and there's millions of spiders. Many are real, the majority are CG, but they're all different sizes. Some are big, and some are just little ones, but it's in their teeming masses, swarming around the halls and corridors and pursuing people, and people being fucking covered in these things. Wow, that goes a little bit further. As I've been saying throughout this, Sting is more like it's a family, almost family-friendly horror movie, apart from some bloodiness and the F-bombs. But the tone of it and the style of it it's more adventurous, and you know, it's one for the kids. It is. So, but gets a massive thumbs up from me. 2 thumbs up. I had a great time with it. Seeing the big screen was actually genuinely enthralling. because I say it looks and sounds very, very good. Anything else I should mention? Just looking at my notes. No, I think I've covered everything. But yeah, go see it. In the UK, you've got it's a hell of a long wait. Unless I've got the date wrong, it doesn't. I think it's the back end of May. Over a month away. So I think that almost makes you think that, are they not that confident in this movie? But other reviews I've read of it from the States have been quite positive and upbeat. I don't see how you couldn't like and enjoy this movie. It does what it says on the tin, and it's got some nice little references and homages. It's very definitely Aliens inspired, and that's not a bad thing. And you make a character out of the villain as well, which is interesting, being as it's a critter, it's a bug, but you're kind of fascinated by what's Sting gonna do next, and scuttling about and all that. So folks, Mullet-Style, I definitely recommend it. Good time. I recommend the score as well. It's bizarre. It's very Flight Attendant like, but that fits the tone of the movie. It is offbeat, off kilter, and off its rocker. But I like it. Right, folks. There you go. Sting, spiders, Charlotte's Web, dysfunctional families who come together over comic books and nasty arachnids. Hey, everyone needs a catalyst to find the love. Folks, I have been Shabby Kilt-Man. Please, in the meantime, this ever creepy crawly, eight-legged freakishness in between time, please keep it kilted, keep it Celtic, and I'm going to see you all in a web near you. Raiders! Yeah. See, dogs love you. Cats kind of half love you. Spiders just want to kill you and eat you. Ain't that the truth?